Welcome to day 235 of 66 in 26. We're in a bit of a difficult section of the prophet Daniel today, chapters 7, 8, and 9. It's difficult because Daniel is using very symbolic language, almost apocalyptic kind of language, in describing historical events that he's foreseeing happening into the future of Israel. And I'll give you an example. In chapter 8, Daniel is describing a ram and a goat, and the ram has two horns, and the goat has one horn, and then the goat comes attacking the ram and then breaks off the horn is broken off of the goat. And what does this all mean? We saw some very similar kinds of language and expression, symbolic language, in the book of Ezekiel. We'll see it again at the end of this year when we're in the book of Revelation. Daniel in this section is very much like this. It's agreed upon by most scholars that when Daniel's describing this section in chapter 8, he's talking about the Greeks under Alexander the Great rushing in and very quickly defeating the Medo-Persians. The Persians were the ones who defeated the Babylonians after the Babylonians had defeated the Assyrians and Israel and others. And so the Babylonians fell to the Persians, the Medo-Persians, and then the Greeks under Alexander the Great just swept in very quickly. It's kind of surprising just how swiftly that victory came. But then Alexander the Great died very young in 323 BC, and when that goat is described as losing its horn, the horn is broken off. That is very likely describing Alexander the Great and a sudden disbursement of his empire. And it was that empire that Alexander had built was quickly divided by four of his generals. And so when it talks about in its place, four prominent horns grew up toward the four winds of the heavens, then that kingdom was divided up into four pieces by the generals of Alexander. And that was the time leading up to the Maccabean revolt in the 2nd century BC and all that. So there's a lot going on, way more than I can describe in a short video, but understand that there's a lot that is describing the events that happen in the 4 centuries leading up to the birth of Jesus in this section of Daniel. The most important thing to understand is actually in chapter 7 verses 13 through 14. In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man. Son of Man is a title that Jesus himself takes for himself in describing himself. And this is the reason why he does that is to show himself to be this one, as in Daniel and in Ezekiel 2, who is able to approach the Ancient of Days, God himself, right? He comes with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, sovereign power. All peoples, nations, and men in every language worshiped him. So this Son of Man is God. He's divine. He has the same authority as God over all the territories of the earth, all the peoples of the earth, and everyone worships him. And then finally it says, his dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. And that's Jesus' kingdom. And so what's most important of these 3 chapters that we're reading today in Daniel is that Jesus Christ, Daniel is foreseeing on the throne. And so after his time of suffering, death, and resurrection, he is elevated to the place above all places, the name above all names, that every knee should bow before him. And that is what Daniel is seeing here in his vision in Daniel 7.